What's going on, everybody? Today we're gonna paint this here rifle. There's a couple of steps that I want to go over before we get to it. First and foremost, you need to clean your rifle. Brake clean, carb cleaner, ether, either of those, any of those will work. The idea behind that being is that they will evaporate on their own. However, when you get into some of these holes and some of these crevices, you might need to take a blow dryer or a fan or something to it in order to make sure that it's nice and dry. Get out all the grease, dust, and debris. Make sure your rifle's nice and clean. And I also want to point out, you can paint a rifle as many times as you want. So if you don't like your initial paint job, you can just paint over it, or wait until your original coat wears off and then paint over that. However you want to go about it. There are a couple of parts that you need to cover up before you start doing this. First and foremost being your trigger housing. There's an axis up here to your trigger mechanism. You don't want paint getting in there and gumming it up. And your optics. You can cover the brand if you want. I mean, if you want it to show, then that's fine. However, it is a good idea to make sure that you mark which direction your turrets are going. You don't really want to paint over that and then have to try and figure it out in a situation where you actually need the accuracy. So be sure to cover up your markings as well. These both have caps on them, so I'm not too worried about it right now. Another thing I want to go over, when you're painting the rifle, you kind of want to dust it. I'm going to be going with moss green on this one. And what I mean by dust it is, you know, when you're spray painting, some people do a nice solid line like that. When you're spray painting your rifle, you kind of want to avoid that, because you don't want this dripping, obviously, right? So when you're painting your rifle, this is gonna be my base color. Just kind of dust that bad boy. Try not to let a whole lot of paint build up in one spot. Now the reason for that is, number one, you're going to be putting a pattern on this. And when you're doing that pattern, it's always a good idea for your base coat anyway, to kind of make sure that you have that color available for when you want to put a pattern in it. And the pattern part is super easy. And depending on what color you want your pattern to be is going to determine your base color. So in this case, I want it to be green, and I want my camo to be black. So you take your template, and I don't know if you can see it on this because these are both dark colors, but you can see the outlines of the leaf. And it also creates that multicolored camouflage pattern. You want to avoid spraying up into your mag well, because that'll gum up in there and it'll make your magazine feel sticky. Also, the end of your barrel, you want to plug that up with I use a cleaning rag, or just cleaning patch will work as well. Okay, so now I've got my base color on there. Now I'm going to start doing some patterns with some black. And you can do whatever colors you want on this. I simply like this color in this pattern. It blends in a little bit better with the environment that I use this rifle in. Okay. Now that I have a little bit of a base camouflage, I'm going to add just a little bit of accent to it. And for this, I'm using driftwood. And this is really where the dusting part comes in, because just a little tiny bit here and there, a little bit of a tiger stripe, gives it just a little bit of accent. And the more random you can make these colors, the better. The simple concept to keep into consideration is that there really are no straight lines in nature, and uniformity is really, really rare in nature. So those are some things to take into consideration when you're painting your rifle. And you can also use your template for your brighter colors as well. Just to give it a little bit of character. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the moss green again and just darken this up just a tiny bit. So you don't need much in order to do this. All this does is give those brighter spots just a little bit of a darker tone. So when you're doing this last little bit, you don't have to spray it on like you were when you were putting the first coat on. Just a little tiny dusting, and it kind of, like I said earlier, it gives those brighter spots a little bit of a darker tone, but they still stand out. So, and it is literally that easy to paint your rifle, and you can do this with any kind of rifle, really. You can even do it with handguns, depending on the material. If you have something like stainless steel, it's not going to work out all that great. But a hunting rifle, just typical Remington 700, with a synthetic stock or something along those lines, you can paint that as well. Although there's a few other aspects that you need to take into consideration, like with a bolt action rifle, you have to take the bolt out and cover up those holes, because you get sediment on that bolt, and it's going to affect the way that it performs in the action. You can do this with whatever colors that you want, and if you want a design, it's pretty easy. A specific design, you can simply take your template. You can build your template whatever you want. Snakeskin, mesh. This is typically what I'll use for mesh, and super easy to apply. And that's how you get your mesh design. As a matter of fact, let's just go ahead and it adds a little bit of character to the whole thing. Yeah. I like it. I like it. All right, well, that's it. Just a little recap. Make sure that you clean your rifle, brake clean, carb clean, ether, essentially anything that evaporates on its own. And make sure that all your little crevices and holes are dry before you start spray painting. choose a base color that you want your templates to look like. Like if you want your templates to be green, choose a green color to begin with. If you want them to be gray, dark gray, black, whatever, that needs to be your base color. And then your next color, your camouflaging color, the color that actually breaks up the outline of the rifle and the straight black color, which is also a color that you very rarely see in nature, that needs to be your overcoat. And with your design, with the mesh, super easy. This is just a safety vest. You can do circles, you can do diamonds. You could even, if you're creative enough, come up with a couple of designs that you see on like Cerakote. But once again, just keep in mind, cover up your optics. Don't spray into your mag well. Fill in the end of your barrel. And this bad boy is good to spray paint. And you can paint it as many times as you want. This will eventually wear off, especially the harder you train with it. But anyway, that's all I got. If you found this video helpful, then please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you.